Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts are the biggest mystery in the NFL for this upcoming season. Now, we did get to see Anthony Richardson play a couple of games his rookie season. He started in 4 games. He did not finish all of those games because in one of the games he got knocked out of with a concussion. And then the game against the Tennessee Titans, he did hurt his shoulder. But before that, this kid looked very good. He had 3 passing touchdowns to 1 interception against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was in his debut in the NFL. He looked very solid in that game. But 3 passing touchdowns and 1 interception in those 4 games for 577 passing yards on the season, 4 rushing touchdowns with 136 rushing yards on the season as well. I think that Anthony Richardson has potential to be a top 5 to top 10 quarterback in the NFL if he can hit his ceiling. Now, I'm not going to come on here and say that the Indianapolis Colts are going to make the NFL playoffs because this division is tough. You have the Houston Texans with CJ at the quarterback position. You have the Jacksonville Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence at the quarterback position. We'll see if Will Levis can continue to develop and can he be a superstar with the Tennessee Titans. Then you have the Indianapolis Colts. This was the best situation that Anthony Richardson could head into last year, dating back to the NFL draft. When they drafted this kid, we're saying, hey, this is the first time in a very long time that they may have a mainstay at the quarterback position. Because we go back over the last couple of years, when they had Frank Reich as the head coach, he was a bad head coach, but he never had the right quarterback that could come in and fit the system long term. You called upon guys like Phillip Rivers, Jacoby Brissett, Carson Wentz, Sam Elger. None of those guys are able to come in and give you automatic success. And Gardner Minshew had to come in for the majority of the season when Anthony Richardson went down. And bless his heart, they almost made the NFL playoffs. It came down to that one last play against the Houston Texans. It's 4th down. He throws the football to the running back and it comes off his hands. If they convert that, maybe they go to the NFL playoffs and maybe they make a deep playoff run. But Gardner Minshew played very well. Give Gardner Minshew his credit, but let's also give Shane Steichen his credit. And Shane Steichen is asked to do a lot right now with Anthony Richardson because he did a great job with Jalen Hurts when he was the offensive coordinator with the Philadelphia Eagles. By far the best I have ever seen Jalen Hurts play in his entire career, even dating back to when he was in Alabama and to where he was at USC when he was getting coached up by Oklahoma, when he was getting coached up by Lincoln Riley. Shane Steichen is one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. The work that he was able to do with Jalen Hurts, and even before Jalen Hurts, what he was able to do with Justin Herbert. So if it's a coach that can get the most out of Anthony Richardson, it is going to be Shane Steichen. The one thing with Anthony Richardson is this: can he develop enough to be an efficient passer at this level? We know that he can run with the football, that he can run over defenders, and he can work off of play action. But when a team is playing cover 3 and cover 2, and just cover 1 robber, does he have enough accuracy to throw guys open, to get the football to guys like A.D. Mitchell and Michael Pittman Jr., and to just get the football to guys like Jonathan Taylor if you want to have him run routes in the open field? Can he read NFL defenses? So far, I have to say yes. Let's go back and look at that Los Angeles Rams game. He played very well. They did lose that game, but in the second half, they completely exploded, and they pushed them into overtime. If their defense was able to cover Puka Nacua in overtime, they possibly would have won that game. Anthony Richardson looked very good. And the reason why I'm not saying that this team can just go out there and make the NFL playoffs, and it is possible, but the reason why I'm not just 100% sold on it is because of the lack of tape that Anthony Richardson has. And he doesn't have as many snaps coming out of college either. This is a quarterback that is still green in his career. He is still a guy that needs to be molded into making the right decisions and to being a franchise quarterback in the NFL. That's easier said than done. But with the weapons that they have around him, I expect for him to be a very good quarterback for this upcoming season or for the next couple of years. But I do believe that the Indianapolis Colts have their next franchise quarterback and Anthony Richardson long term if he can stay healthy and if he can develop that accuracy. Because he only completed 60% of his passes before he was completely knocked out of the season dealing with that shoulder injury. Maybe he would have went out there and looked better. We will see. But this is a guy that has the athleticism. The reason why they gave him the keys to the castle so soon is because he can go out there and he can run around and he can throw guys open for when plays break down. But in structure, I am worried about that. And he did a lot of good things against the Rams and against the Jacksonville Jaguars inside the pocket. But can he be consistent against teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, against teams like the Cincinnati Bengals? They're going to bring a tough front seven or going to bring a tough secondary. And I expect for him to have a couple of boneheaded mistakes because he is still a young quarterback, but it doesn't mean that he will be a bust with the Indianapolis Colts. I'm not saying that. But if he can't succeed here, that means that it was just never going to work out. This is the one prospect that I can't say this about. Either he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL or he's going to be no good. There's no in between with this kid. And I'm more so on the side that he's going to be a complete hit with the Indianapolis Colts because the coaching staff that they have and the weapons that they have around this kid with Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor was dealing with an injury, but they went out there and they paid him anyway. He was disgruntled with the organization, but they paid him. Just a couple of years ago, he was the best running back in the NFL. He led the NFL in rushing yards. On this season, 741 rushing yards, 7 rushing touchdowns. He averaged 4.4 yards a carry. I will say this about Jonathan Taylor. He has to stay healthy. I'm worried about that injury history now. When he was able to stay on the field, he looked very good, but he was splitting carries with Zach Moss. You no longer have Zach Moss. He is now with the Cincinnati Bengals. So now you look at the rest of the running backs with this roster. Trey Sermon, can he come in and give you good production? He averaged 4.6 yards a carry, but he also only had 35 carries on the season. And you also have Evan Hull as well. This is a guy that's young, only has 1 carry in his career so far. I expect for these running backs to come in and get very good volume, but they're going to ride Jonathan Taylor like that bell cow back, like how he was a couple of years ago. I am concerned about that because if Anthony Richardson is struggling against certain coverages and you want to run the football, if Jonathan Taylor's not there, you may try to run read option and you may just expose Anthony Richardson to more hits. And I don't want to see that because this is a kid right now that's been dealing with injuries from a concussion to a shoulder injury as well. And by the way, both of those plays are just freak accidents by Anthony Richardson. I'm not going to come on here and say that he's going to be injury prone. He wasn't able to stay healthy. When the back of his head smacked the turf, that was just a freak accidental play. I've seen the same play happen to Tua Tagovailoa. It happened to Lamar Jackson. It's happened to Tom Brady. Sometimes it just happened. You just can't brace yourself. He tried to. He hit his head. And the shoulder injury was just a bad play. But it happens. It's football. Injuries are going to happen. Unfortunately, it happened to your franchise quarterback that you hope who can be your franchise quarterback, and Anthony Richardson. The offensive line is one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. Quentin Nelson is one of the best guards in the NFL. He is tremendous at that position. Braden Smith is a very good right tackle. And I like Ryan Kelly at the center position as well. So you have a very good run game with Jonathan Taylor. If he can stay on the field, and the offensive line, when they're fully healthy, they're very good as well. It's a different type of offensive line than you were dealing with Frank Reich because those guys regress. And as soon as Shane Steichen comes over, they look like they were 100% yet again. And within that first year that they had with Frank Reich. So give Shane Steichen even more credit for getting the offensive line back to where they need to be, like how they were a couple of years ago. The wide receivers, I mentioned this before. Michael Pittman Jr. is very good. He's a true number 1 wide receiver. They just extended him to a long-term contract. You have Josh Downs. Not too many people speak about Josh Downs. This is a guy that can take the top off the defense and is a tremendous slot wide receiver. 771 receiving yards on the season, 2 receiving touchdowns. He's very good. You also have A.D. Mitchell coming from Texas. This is a guy, in my opinion, he should have been a first-round pick, but he was not. You got him in the second round. You were hoping that Alec Pierce could come in and he could be that complimentary wide receiver alongside Michael Pittman Jr. That hasn't been the case. You now have A.D. Mitchell, smooth, reminds me a lot of CeeDee Lamb. Smooth route runner, has great hands, and can take the top off the defense. And he's very explosive. He can come in and he can be that very good number 2 wide receiver alongside MPJ. Then you also have Josh Downs as well. Alec Pierce is not a bad wide receiver, but he hasn't lived up to that hype. This is a guy that came from Cincinnati College, was very good, just has not been able to break out. And he had 514 receiving yards on the season, 2 receiving touchdowns. He averaged 16 yards a catch. It's going to be a place with him on this team. But A.D. Mitchell, he has potential to be the number 2 wide receiver. So we will see. Right now, Josh Downs is that number 2, but you just put him primarily in the slot. So with the weapons that they have around Anthony Richardson, it's a good rapport. I love their offense, especially with Shane Steichen calling plays. And their defense was up and down. Because you have a lot of young players, especially in the secondary. They have the 23rd total defense in the NFL. 15th in passing defense. That's not bad because they were dealing with so many injuries in that secondary. But their rushing defense was 23rd. Their rushing defense has to be better. And that's quite surprising that their rushing defense was that low because of the good players that they have on that defensive line. Kwity Paye is very good. He was a developmental pass rusher when they first selected him in the first round a couple of years ago from Michigan. But 8.5 sacks on the season, 2 forced fumbles. He's very good. DeForest Buckner, one of the best interior defensive tackles in the NFL. 8 sacks on the season, 2 forced fumbles. You also have Raekwon Davis, who had a very solid season in terms of just going out there and stopping the run. Now, he's not going to go out there and get you a lot of pressure in the middle of the field, but he's going to go out there and help you stop the run. You also have Grover Stewart. Now, he missed some time dealing with a suspension, but we know when he's on the field, he's a guy that can go out there and push the pocket. He can stop the run. He's not going to be a stat sheet stuffer. He's not going to go out there and give you over 10 sacks in the season, but he can go out there, effective passer up the middle of the field. He's going to help open up the game for guys like Kwity Paye and for guys like DeForest Buckner as well. But DeForest Buckner, in my opinion, is the best defensive lineman with the team. Samson Ebukam, 9.5 sacks on the season, 3 forced fumbles. He's 29 years old. One thing that the Indianapolis Colts did in the first round, they went out there and they drafted Laiatu Latu, edge rusher out of UCLA. Very good edge rusher. He's dealt with some neck injuries in the past. He was asked to retire. Then he came back and played. I will say this about him. If he can stay on the field and that neck is no longer bothering him, you may have a franchise pass rusher. This is a guy that has a similar skill set to TJ Watt. I'm not calling him TJ Watt, but he can flip his hips back into coverage. He can jam up tight ends on the line of scrimmage. He can stop the run. He's a complete defensive player that can come in and be a very good rotational pass rusher right now. But long term, you hope that he can be a franchise pass rusher. And I think with the skill set that he has, he will turn into being one of the better pass rushers with the Indianapolis Colts. So they can go out there and they can put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And they're going to need that because their secondary struggled this season. A lot of it was because of the injuries. It wasn't because they were just bad. You had some top players that was out. Juju Brents was a rookie, 411 receiving yards on the season that he allowed, but he had 5 pass breakups, 2 touchdowns allowed for 1 interception. He could be a very good, effective corner moving forward if he can just stay healthy. He only played in 9 games, but those 9 games, he looked solid. I think that he will get better, especially with this pass rushing situation getting better with the Indianapolis Colts as well. Kenny Moore, 578 receiving yards allowed in the season, 3 receiving touchdowns, but he also had 3 interceptions. The secondary has to be better, but these guys are young. And overall, the Indianapolis Colts, they have a young football team. You look at a guy like MPJ, he's a veteran. Jonathan Taylor, he's a veteran. And those guys aren't just old players. That is just how young this team is right now. That's why it was easy for Gardner Minshew to go out there and just try to lead the guys because he's been around the NFL. You have a veteran coach in Shane Steichen that's been around the NFL. He's going to put these guys to the best situation. That's why it's hard for me to come on here and say, hey, the Indianapolis Colts are going to be a dangerous force in that division. They're going to be a hard team to beat. But at the same time, they are a very young football team. And I can say the same thing about the Houston Texans. I can say the same thing about the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans. It's just the quarterback position with the Indianapolis Colts I'm a bit hesitant on because of the lack of tape that Anthony Richardson has. Then when you look at the rest of the players on the defensive end, they're linebackers. They're very good. I like Zaire Franklin, one of the best linebackers in the NFL, 107 solo tackles on the season, 2 forced fumbles, just a tackle machine. You have Ronnie Harrison Jr. at the linebacker position as well. This is a guy that can flip around. He can play some safety for you, but right now he's listed as a linebacker, 2 interceptions on the season, 2 pass deflections, just a solid defensive player to have. He can flip back to safety as well. Then you also have Julian Blackmon, 4 interceptions on the season, 8 pass deflections, one of the best players in that secondary. So the Indianapolis Colts, they have talent. They just need to mesh it all in together. I really wish that they would have hired Shane Steichen sooner and possibly gotten a better quarterback at that time instead of just having Frank Reich, because the talent was definitely there with the Indianapolis Colts over the last couple of years. It's just been the quarterback position. That was it. And not saying that Anthony Richardson won't be that star quarterback for them. I think that he will be. It's just going to take a lot of time. But I think that the Indianapolis Colts are headed into the right direction with Anthony Richardson. But in my opinion, they're the biggest mystery in the NFL. We could talk about the New York Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is a proven quarterback. We could talk about Will Levis and Tennessee Titans. They are a mystery as well, but they have some veterans over there. And they do have a brand new head coach. So that gives you some pause as well. But I think that the Indianapolis Colts are going to be one of those teams. They could go out there and possibly make a playoff push, or they could be one of those teams that could be middle of the pack. Regardless, they're going to be a tough team to beat, and they're going to be in every single game for this upcoming season. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about the Indianapolis Colts, and is Anthony Richardson the right quarterback for this team long term? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for watching the video, guys. God bless. Peace.